Those comments just overnight. Let's bring in Justin Wolfers, economics and public policy professor at the University of Michigan. And this morning we are kicking off our new series called The Professor is In. So Professor Wolfers will be joining us every other week here to break down the latest economic news. And so, Professor, help us understand what's going on when it comes to trade and the difference between a trade deal and a trade agreement.
Right. So trade agreements are what every other administration went through in the past. Think of it as the international trade equivalent of getting married. A trade agreement is something that's passed by Congress, and it's a legal document. It has enforcement mechanisms, and because it's passed by Congress, it's very hard to repeal. Because it's hard to repeal, like a marriage, that then makes it the sort of thing where businesses can rely on it. If you know that you're going to be, pardon this, in bed with someone for a while, you can trust that maybe we're going to talk about buying a house or making investments in our future together. A trade deal, that's the word the president uses instead. It's none of that. It's the president meeting you and essentially a political handshake. Think of this as a lot more like dating. We're going to shake hands. We're going to agree that we're going to keep on doing whatever we just agreed to do for as long as it serves both of us. But if I don't like it, I'm just going to move on. And that's what the president has been talking about recently.
So trade agreement, marriage, trade deal, dating. What about if two countries are just talking? They're having trade talks or chats. Where does that put us?
Yeah, so this is the Tinder of international trade. And there's a lot of this going on right now. The president often tells us he's made a trade deal. But when you read the deal, for instance, the text of the deal with the UK, a lot of it is actually, we've agreed that we're going to talk in the future. A lot of what happened with the China deal was actually, we've agreed that we're going to talk in the future. So this is basically both the US and China swiping right, which begins a series of text messages, but it's no more than that. Now, it actually turns out that swiping right can be pretty important. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently said that the best thing is we now have a way of talking with China, and if only we'd had that a month and a half ago, we wouldn't have had to go through 6 weeks of 145% tariffs.
If two countries then do come to an agreement on trade, how is that enforced?
Right. So this is what makes trade agreements so tricky, and it makes the economics and the law so important. Again, it's a little bit like marriage. So in marriage, you stand up and you make a promise to love, honor, and cherish. But the courts can never enforce that your partner love you or that you love them. Likewise, when the US and UK or the US and China sign a trade deal, there's no court that has jurisdiction over both countries, and it can't force both of them to get together and treat each other well. So what you have in marriage is, if you don't treat me well, I'm not going to treat you well. If you don't treat me right, I'm going to have you go sleep on the sofa, or you'll wake up to burnt toast tomorrow. Well, we have a similar enforcement mechanism with international trade. If you don't treat me well, then I can threaten you with the equivalent of sleeping on the sofa, which in this case would be retaliatory tariffs. I would raise tariffs on you because I didn't think you were treating me right.
And that's exactly what we have seen take place. We've seen the Trump administration and other countries sort of flip-flop on trade, one-up each other. Why bother making a deal if it's going to be breached, or you can't trust that the other person's going to hold to that deal, is going to stay committed, if you will, to use your analogy? Are there consequences?
Yeah, so that's what makes everything so darn hard. So here's the difficulty, right? So if I'm not getting on with my spouse, I might go sleep on the couch, or I might have them go sleep on the couch. But if my spouse doesn't love me, they don't really think of that as much of a consequence. And so it doesn't keep them cooperating with me. Same's true with international trade. If Trump doesn't really want to be in economic bed with our trading partners, and their threat is they're going to put us on the couch, retaliatory tariffs, his view is, who cares? In which case, these trade deals start to become difficult to enforce, because that's the primary enforcement mechanism that keeps us working together. It's actually a step worse than that. So remember, the only thing that keeps a trade deal going is, if this isn't working out, I'm going to put retaliatory tariffs on you. Trump has said, if you put retaliatory tariffs on me, I'm going to put retaliatory tariffs on you. That then has meant that countries like Australia or Korea or Britain have decided not to impose retaliatory tariffs. That basically means those countries no longer have a way of forcing the US to live up to its obligations in its existing trade deals. So Trump's decision that he's going to retaliate on retaliation effectively takes all of our existing trade deals and rips them up because it says there's no way to enforce them anymore without it hurting you more than me.
It is fascinating, and you just explained a very complicated issue in a way that only you can. I'm so glad that you joined us on this Friday. Justin Wolfers, thank you so much.